Welcome to Get a Life podcast with Kristen
and Steve.
Together, we are certified life and business coaches and consultants. Join us as we give you practical steps to realistic subjects based on our experiences that are attainable and you can apply to your life today to start seeing results.
We will talk about subjects such as time management, organizing your day, your purpose, getting beyond your past, and many other topics.
We want to help you take the next step. We will use our experiences and life journey to help you shorten yours. So grab a cup of coffee, put your earbuds in at your desk, or go for a run, and let's get a life together. Welcome to Get a Life podcast. I'm Kristen.
I'm Steve.
Today we are on episode 7, and we are going to be talking about
dealing with frustration.
Yeah, that's always fun. So last week we talked about, I can't even remember now.
I don't remember which one was the last one, but we've had a lot of different topics. Your purpose, barriers to your purpose. I think last one was dealing with distractions.
Yeah.
Time management, organizing your day. A lot of different topics that we've covered. And all of them, including this one, always comes back to your purpose.
Yep, it does.
These are things that either propel you forward towards your purpose or they hold you back.
Yep.
They can create barriers, distractions, hold you back from your purpose. Frustration will hold you back from your purpose. So our goal in these is to give you some tools, hopefully, to deal with frustrations and distractions and all these different things we talk about, because you can't avoid them. So we're hoping to give you some tools, and I think what we've talked about, the word you've used is awareness.
Yes, I think in every single episode, it's all about awareness. Awareness of who you are, awareness of where you are in life, and awareness of what else do I need to implement into my life to make it easier or better or more fulfilled.
And I think trying to make you, like this one, for example, frustration is, we're going to talk about what is it, where does it come from, and how do you even identify when you have frustration, where is that frustration coming from? What's causing it?
Yep.
So that's our goal, is to give you a few little tips and tools to work with that. So as usual, if I start out with a definition of frustration, because it's going to help to give a little better understanding, the dictionary definition of frustration is a feeling of dissatisfaction, often accompanied by anxiety or depression, resulting from unfulfilled needs or unresolved problems. So let me break that down real quick. So frustration starts with an unfulfilled need or unresolved problem. That's where frustration sets in. The result of that, if not dealt with, the side effect, I guess, if you will, is dissatisfaction. So it starts out with a problem, an unresolved problem or an unfulfilled area of your life. Frustration then sets in because of that. And as a result, if not dealt with, you end up living in a level of dissatisfaction, which can lead to depression and all other kinds of things if not dealt with. So that's the definition of it. Frustration is a product of something. It doesn't just show up. Some people, I think that frustration just comes out of nowhere. It's a product of something.
Absolutely. It's a symptom of something.
Yep. When you're dissatisfied, you're unfulfilled, you have unresolved problems with things or people, that frustration becomes that product of that. You can have a situation in life, for example, or in a job, that when you're dissatisfied with the job or you're unfulfilled in the job, that situation can become a frustration. If you're in that area of, I don't like my job, I'm unfulfilled. Right. So you can have a situation come up in a job that you're unfulfilled in, and that situation presents a frustration. Or, if I keep using a job as an example, you can have a job that you are fulfilled in and you like, and you can take the same exact situation and you view it as a challenge to be solved rather than a frustration.
Right.
That's
and
the difference.
And if you do it as a challenge, instead of saying, oh, why is this? Why am I frustrated? Why is everybody making me frustrated? Oh, I'm so miserable, blah, blah, blah. say, fine, good enough. I'm going to take this as a challenge and I'm going to fix this.
Yeah. So that's the difference. When a situation presents itself as frustration and you let it get to the point of dissatisfaction, it's because it's linked to something you're not fulfilled in. Versus viewing it, you're still going to have frustrations, but you view it as a challenge and you don't stay frustrated with it for long.
Right.
So if I look at that definition again, frustration again is the result of unfulfilled needs or unresolved problems. And as a result of this, you become dissatisfied with life, a job, a relationship, whatever, and if not dealt with, eventually can lead to depression and other side effects that come with that. So what do we do with this? We're talking about dealing with frustration, so what do we do to deal with this? So let's go back to that root of frustration first. An unfulfilled need or an unresolved problem. It's important to recognize that frustration leads to distractions. It affects growth. It affects productivity. It affects purpose. All of these things that we've been talking about. It affects good time management skills if you're frustrated with something.
You're just like, I don't even care. I'm not even going to bother with it.
Right. You just want to get beyond it. So it has to be dealt with. So some of this may seem obvious, but I think some of you listening or watching may have some frustration that you don't even realize where it's coming from. So you need to identify that first. So I think understanding, again, the importance of, the reason why I bring a definition every time is because understanding what it really means helps you identify. So you've probably had times in your life, I've had times in my life where I've just felt frustrated and I don't even know why. Somebody could say, why are you frustrated? I don't know. I just feel frustrated. So when you get that moment, obviously there's times, probably more than not, that when you're frustrated, you know exactly why.
I feel like it.
A good question to ask yourself, if you have a feeling of frustration and you're not sure why, and maybe it's because you're just so busy and there's a lot going on, stop for a minute and say, okay, what is happening right now that's unfulfilling or an unresolved problem?
We can go back to our episode of resetting. Like if I'm that frustrated and I don't even know why, I need to stop and have a reset. So go back to that podcast of resetting, because I think that might, if you are in this position
where you don't even know what's frustrating you.
I think you'll find out pretty sure if you take a couple days.
I think if you really think what's unfulfilled or what unresolved problems, and you start to think about those, something's going to click and go, that's what's causing my I was too busy to realize it or whatever, but that's what's frustrating me right now. Now how do I deal with it?
Yeah.
How do I resolve this problem so it doesn't just set in and cause more problems? What part of your life is unfulfilled, or what unresolved problem is there that triggers frustration? And sometimes if it's an unresolved problem, it can happen a lot. Certain things will come up. Somebody can just say the right thing, not even referring to what's frustrating the situation, but all they can do is say the right thing. It can be somebody that's associated with a certain group of people or whatever, and it triggers frustration. You've got to deal with that so you can get beyond that.
But you have to be aware.
You have to be aware of what it is.
You can't just go sit on the roller coaster ride of this frustration. You've got to stop and say, what is going on?
Yes. So what's unfulfilled?
Yep.
And we're going to get to this in a minute, but not everything that's unfulfilling can cause frustration. We'll get to that in a minute. So, but what triggers you? What triggers that frustration in your life? Maybe it's a job. Maybe it's a specific task of a job. Maybe it's a relationship or a part of a relationship. Maybe it's a location that you live in. You don't like where you live and it's unfulfilling to you. So what's triggering that frustration? You have to be aware of when the frustration switch gets turned on and what is happening at the very moment. It's about awareness.
It's aware. You got to be aware.
Long.
Yes.
Okay. I'm now frustrated. What triggered it?
Right.
What triggered my frustration?
I'll give you my example when we were talking about this. I have my own kind of health issues, my health problems, and I am really sensitive to sounds. And I remember one time working in the kitchen, and the girls, my daughters, were in the living room, and they were laughing and having the best time ever. And in my body, I wanted to run over and say, everybody just stop laughing. I'm like, okay. number one, you can't yell at somebody for laughing. You can't stop somebody for laughing. So I had to be very aware of what was happening, why I was frustrated, what was triggering me because it was just sounds or whatever. So I just had to go to the other room, just kind of collect myself, whatever, and come back in and let everybody else kind of live their life. So you got to be aware. Like when I had the urge to run in the living room and yell at everybody, I had to say, okay, no, we're not going to do that.
And I think something that I hadn't thought of until now when you said that, it's also important that we recognize what is frustrating other people. And we understand and sometimes we don't know, but sometimes we know certain things are going on in people's lives.
Right.
And we can sometimes, it helps us to not get frustrated with somebody else getting frustrated when we understand what's triggering it.
Right.
They've got something going on right now, personal, whatever, we know about it, and that's triggering the frustration, and it causes us to give them a little slack.
Right, and I think I've said that too. Like, I am having a rough day, and it has nothing to do with you. Right. I just want to give everybody that warning. It's not you.
Right.
But I'm having a rough day.
So
that's nice too. I'm aware that I'm having a rough day. I want everyone else to know that it's not their fault. It doesn't change my rough day, but it makes everybody else kind of say, okay, she's just going through some stuff.
And I think it helps even in the workplace, in your job. If you work in a place where you work with a lot of people.
The awareness of other people around you.
Yeah, and sometimes people, you may talk to somebody, a coworker, and they seem frustrated and upset and irritated, and we don't always know what's going on in their personal life that's causing this. Because, listen, it's easy to get wrapped up in a job and you think that your job is your life, but at the end of the day, it's not. It's not. Some of us make it our life. I've been guilty of that. At the end of the day, we go to work to pay our bills and provide for our families. Mm-hmm. There's life beyond work, and sometimes life throws some curveballs that can cause people to have a level of frustration in their job, and it has nothing to do with the job. It might have to do with what's going on. So it helps us to recognize frustration in our own life, what's triggering it, but also cut some people some slack.
Right, because I always say, like the kids will come home and complain about this or that or whatever. I'm like, okay, let's find out the why. Why do you think that people were acting like that? Like, do you think something's going on in their life? What do you think's going on? Right. Because there's always a why to it.
Everything.
Don't always jump to the first conclusion that comes to your mind, because most likely that's not it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So identifying it is step one, and then step two is, what do I do about it? What do I do with this? Now, again, like many of our podcasts, this can't be covered all in one podcast. But this may be, depending on
it's a good like trigger for people to start thinking about stuff.
Depending on how serious the unfulfilled area or the unresolved problems of your life, you may need to get a life coach, a strategic advisor. Right. Depending on how serious it is, you may need a therapist or a counselor or something like that to help you work through these to eliminate frustration in your life. For
me, I like lists, because we've talked about lists.
That helps you
I would sit down for a minute and just say, what is frustrating me? What is it that's frustrating me? Because I think there's a lot of anxiety. I think that word is used very widely now. And you say, why am I anxious? I like to hear that. Like, what is the frustrations that is causing my anxiety? And I did like that definition.
And sometimes that list, if you go back to our previous podcasts about organizing your day and time in, lists can help remove frustration.
Yes, that helps.
Just because you're bouncing everywhere. But if you've got yourself organized for the day, that can help too, depending on what's causing the frustration.
Right, exactly.
So you got to look at what's causing it, what's triggering it. Is there something I can change? Is it realistic for me to change jobs? Is it realistic for me to move locations? Is it realistic for me to end a relationship that's not healthy that I'm in, that's triggering frustration? Can I confront, if it's due to an unresolved problem, can I confront that? Right. Or can I not confront that?
Or should I confront it? Or should I just like move on in life?
So these are things in many cases only you can deal with.
Yep. Everybody's situation is so different.
That's right.
These are general.
And we're just helping you try to recognize.
Yes.
And give you some questions to ask yourself when you're feeling frustrated.
Yeah.
Okay, let me stop and think for a minute. What's triggering?
Or if you feel like you have this outburst of anger, like stop for a second before like riding that roller coaster. Stop for a second and say, why am I freaking out?
Correct.
Like, you might have every legitimate reason to freak out,
Right.
but take a second. Just take a
figure
second.
out why.
Why am
What's
I
going
so
on?
freaking out?
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the negative side to frustration.
Yeah, right.
We're going to talk for a minute on the positive side to frustration. Most people don't consider frustration to be positive.
But it can be.
But there can be. Depending on how we choose to deal with it, it certainly can be a positive, depending on your personality, where you are in life. Frustration can produce an ambition or a drive in us to solve a problem or to make a necessary change in life. I always use an example of a job because I'm geared more towards business. So I've been frustrated in the past in a job when I knew it was time to move on. That frustration produces a drive or an ambition, and it produced in me at different stages of my life to, okay, it's time to change jobs. Yep. This job is frustrating me, it's time to move on. Mm-hmm. Yep. So frustration can be a positive depending on how we choose to deal with it. When you're dissatisfied, you're feeling unfulfilled, there's unresolved problems, we can sit and complain about it, or we can choose to make a change about it.
Yes.
Now, I understand that there are situations in our lives that present themselves that cause frustration that there's nothing we can do about.
Right.
But if you think about it, the majority of problems, probably 95% or maybe more of the problems that cause frustrations in our life, probably 98% of them, we can do something about it.
We're not saying it's your fault, but we're
Correct.
saying you can do something about it.
Correct. You can do something to make a change.
Right.
So what's the difference between allowing frustration to drag you down or allowing frustration to propel you forward? This is where the positive side of frustration comes in. So what I've found is my reaction to frustration or my ambition to do something about it or stay stuck in it is linked to me knowing my purpose.
There you go. Yep, that's good.
So when I get frustration, if I know my purpose, I know that this is an unhealthy frustration. I need to do something about this. Or this is a healthy frustration that's trying to push me forward.
Yeah.
But if I don't know my purpose, frustrations can set in a lot.
Yep.
And you don't know what to do with it.
Yeah,
and you
so
don't know what's
everything
going
just
on.
feels like a bunch of chaos.
Like all the other subjects we've talked about, and we're going to find this probably almost in every podcast, it's linked back to you knowing your purpose.
From the #1 podcast.
Knowing your purpose
first one,
helps get through life and all of the challenges that it presents. So if I use myself as an example, 2 examples. Life coaching, business coaching, what I'm doing right here is part of my purpose. Helping people take the next step. It's part of our purpose. Always has been.
Yeah, it really has.
When we worked in ministry, we were always concerned with developing leaders, helping them take the next step.
Yeah.
So we may get frustrated when things don't work out like they should. We don't get enough listeners on our podcast. We don't have clients to life coach or whatever. But if we know this is my purpose, it propels me to do something about it. Okay, maybe come up with some different, keep doing podcasts. What are some different strategies?
It's not hurting anything.
Right. But it propels us because it's part of our purpose. It's linked to that. That frustration actually propels us to keep doing it.
Correct.
And to maybe change things up a little bit.
Right.
I work in construction management. That's also part of my purpose. Construction has been part of my life since a young age. And I know that. I love the construction industry. So I can have many situations that present themselves as a frustration in the workplace. The difference is I don't allow it to drag me down to the point of depression and dissatisfaction.
Right.
Why? Because it's my purpose. So I allow that frustration comes in, and I don't allow it to get me to that point. It actually propels me to let me do something about this frustration. Let me solve the problem. Let me find what's causing this issue and move on from it. Mm-hmm. So when frustration is linked to your purpose, it actually produces an ambition to solve the problem, to find a solution. Yep. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So if you have unfulfillment in an area of your life that's causing frustration, if you have no drive or ambition to resolve the problem, then you're probably operating outside of your purpose. Go back and listen to, I think it's our first podcast.
I think the first one, yeah.
Are you operating outside of your purpose? if there's things there that are causing frustration and you don't want to do anything about it other than get out of it altogether,
Right.
you may need to rethink what your purpose is. So, if I go back to examples, is it a job you're meant to be in? Is it a relationship you're meant to stay in? What is it that you need to move from so it resets your mind and gets you back on track? How you deal with frustration is linked to your purpose.
Yep, agreed.
So let me say it this way. I wrote this down, so I'm going to read it. I found that frustration sticks around a lot longer and becomes more of a frustrating frustration when you're not operating in your purpose.
That's good.
I've been there.
Yeah.
When I'm not operating in my purpose, and frustrations, they're frustrating frustrations.
Everything's frustrating. Everything you
frustrating.
do. Yeah, it's not just one thing.
You have to go to the grocery store to get eggs, and it frustrates the daylights out of you because you're struggling in your purpose.
Yeah.
Everything is linked to that. So again, go back to our first couple
Yes.
podcasts about purpose, and maybe you'll get some direction there that'll then eventually help you with the frustrations that you deal with. So we kind of threw a lot at you with this, but I hope it brought some clarity, maybe helps relieve some frustration and gives you some awareness and some tips and some steps that you can take. This may be a podcast you need to listen to more than once, to make some notes, write some stuff down. Because frustration it is a part of life. So we need to know how to deal with it.
Yep.
Anything else?
That's it.
All right. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. Again, if you want to contact us, you can email us at skyoungconsulting@gmail.com, or you can find us on Facebook at SK Young Consulting. We'll see you next time. I believe we're going to talk about dealing with mindsets. So see you next time.
Okay, see ya.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. Our goal is that you have some practical steps that you can implement today at Getting a Life. Don't forget to come back next week as we continue to talk about the subjects that will help you reach your life goals. If you want more information about what we do, you can reach us at skyoungconsulting@gmail.com. That's S as in Steve, K as in Kristen, Young, YOUNG, consulting@gmail.com, or our Facebook page, SK Young Consulting. And please share our podcast with your friends. See you next time, and remember, you control your day. Don't let your day control you.